Hey everyone, it's Gavin with Haverstick Designs, and I'm very excited to be here at Butler University with my friends Cutler, Armstrong, Mark Harris.
I'm Mark Harris. I'm the Technical Facilities Coordinator for the College of Communication. And then I'm fortunate enough to be an adjunct instructor in the Music Industry Studies program.
So Mark and I have been a team for a long time, going back over 20 years now. So I think this will be my 20th year to be a lecturer. So I'm a senior lecturer in the College of Communication here at Butler, and I teach in our Music Industry Studies degree program. So the space that we're in was a videotape library when Butler had a PBS affiliate that they ran. Back here off camera, if you were back there, it was a huge bass buildup, and then just various places in the room sounded different. Mark and I have gone from, I think, buying off-the-shelf RLX products and consulting with Gavin to several phases of now full-blown work with Haverstick Designs.
This room was actually the most recent one that we've done together. What we did, we came in here and we took acoustical measurements, we did some modeling, we came up with this acoustical treatment plan. So these panels on the walls are from Oralex Acoustics. They're 4-inch thick fabric-covered fiberglass panels, which in the low frequencies, it's about twice as effective as a 2-inch thick panel, which you typically see in a lot of spaces. And so in a small room, we're always having trouble with low frequency response. The 4-inch panels go a long way for that.
It's funny because in those early days, we had some Genlex speakers that came from some studio in Miami, and they were actually in wall mount baffles. And so they were on shelves that were built into the corner. And we thought we were doing really well. And we sent a mix off of a student sampler to Andy Van Det. And he sent it back with the notes and said, "You have this incredible bass buildup." We had no idea, of course. And I've always said that, there's 3 things that'll make or break your recording, and that's the microphones you use, where you place them, but most importantly, the environment that you're in. And it's true not only in the studio where you're recording, but also in that mix room. I mean, if you've got something that's bad in your mix position, you're just going to keep adding or subtracting accordingly, and your mix comes out totally different than what you think you're hearing.
In the front of the room, we have the custom bass traps in each corner. That's where those soffit mounted speakers were before, but
right.
Since we weren't going to soffit mount the Ocean Ways, we made use of those corners for bass trapping. So they're really thick. I think they're 2 or 3 feet deep there, and filled with insulation. Use the denim insulation, the bonded logic type of material.
Right.
And even that front wall behind that's kind of a faux stone. It's not real stone. It looks like it.
Yeah, it's polyurethane foam.
Yeah.
We got those from fauxpanels.com.
Yeah.
But kind of, a diffuser basically because of the varying depths and the fact that it's a hard surface.
Yeah, we've got some space couplers in the ceiling here, which make use of that volume that's above this room, because there's a lot of space above here, and it allows that sound to go up. And it's like absorption, and it actually is bass trapping up above there. It allows that sound to kind of escape and be scattered. And then on the back wall here, we have the custom bass trap in the corner. We didn't do one in the other corner because of the door was located there, but we did fur out this wall about 8 inches thick or so, and then mounted the diffusers on top of it. So the low frequencies travel through it, get trapped behind those diffusers, but then it doesn't become too dry or too dead in here with those diffusers scattering some of the sound back.
It really made a big difference as far as how this room sounds, and especially when you get really good monitors in here. The focals are fantastic, and then the Ocean Ways are just night and day as far as the sound is either there or it's not. It's almost like they're binary in that regard. And so you get really good monitors into a good space, and it's amazing the results you can get.
So tell us a little bit about the kind of the gear that you chose in here, and what the students are using.
Yeah, so Mark and I really bounced a lot of stuff off each other, but also off of friends of the program, some of whom do this, not education, but actually, making, mixing, producing, recording music as a full-time gig. And I think sometimes we have to kind of step back and look at it from a different perspective. We went with a pure analog signal path that has no automation. And so we went with an API 1608. It is truly modular, where every single one of these things can be lifted out of here, right? You have 16 API preamps. You've got, 12 of the classic, these are the 550As, parametric EQs, these are the 560, equalizers.
Yeah.
So we have this as really the centerpiece, and of course a professional Pro Tools system with the latest Apogee converters, a really versatile patch bay. A lot of things are either normal or half normal, but we have a lot of flexibility in there. Over here, Pultec EQ, and then we have several SSL modules, right? So you have a little different sound from the APIs. I guess actually we have 2 pre's, 2 EQs, and then the G-Comp bus compressor. And in these racks, just some of the real classic gear, the LA2A compressor, the 1176 compressor, the TLA that's kind of like a slightly more complex LA2A, the stereo distressors, the TubeTech EQ, and then we have additional pre's, and so I believe, Mark, we do have 24 in and out on Pro Tools.
Right. The Millennia is actually an 8-channel preamp, and so we use that for 17 through 24 going into Pro Tools. So if you do have 24 tracks you want to record, then you can just go directly into the Millennia. The Millennia then becomes the preamp for those later channels. And then we do have the 2 Focusrites as well that you can just use as alternates. So even though audio production really isn't our focus, we wanted something that made it virtually plug and play so that, the students could come into the rooms and get good results without having those faults show up in everything that they did. And so anybody from the beginning users that use the smaller studio on up to the more advanced people that are in this room, they really do get better results because we've paid attention to those things.
And we always say this stuff is really like incremental, right? Like, so you start with a good space. Hopefully you have somebody playing a well set up in tune instrument and they play it well, right? Or they sing well or whatever. You have a good microphone and you're coming into a good pre. You've got maybe some good outboard. You have the great converters in Pro Tools. You have the great monitoring. So each of those things just incrementally bring it up to a level when it comes out of those speakers. That's inspiring to people.
Oh, yeah. Really neat the fact that you can have video and audio communication to the live room that's right down the hallway. And that was a fun project that let's go show that off. This room, it used to be a TV studio. It's got really tall ceilings, which was nice to play with, and it really was a phased project. You had 2 of them right next to each other, and then one of them, I think there was more of a focus on audio going on at the time, and so kind of recapturing that space, and we turned it into a large live room, and then 2 ISO booths there, and that one was really fun to do, and just kind of giving you guys something on campus that you didn't have before.
No.
Right?
Yeah, we didn't have it at all. Yeah, we had just one large space, and we had put up, and we did the construction ourselves with colleagues.
We stripped it all the way down to the walls, all the way up to the ceiling, took out the lighting grid, took out all of the pipe that would hang lights, everything, the dimmers. And so we added mass-loaded vinyl, green glue, and another layer of drywall throughout. We took a window to the hallway out.
Yep.
And then we did this room, like you said, in 2 phases. So originally we still had a concrete floor and we had the one ISO room, and that was basically it. And then the second phase, we added the smaller isolation room, and we actually had to recut the doorway for the large ISO room so that we could bring in the raised floor.
Yeah.
And the raised floor we did with the U-boats underneath the studs. Mm-hmm. Again, tons of denim insulation underneath so that we've got maximum isolation in the floor.
Yep.
We did add a floor pocket for inputs in the middle of the room. And then, we ended up with basically something that's still handicapped accessible.
Yeah.
And we had to find a way to keep this ringing down. So we filled most of it with acoustic foam, expanding foam to keep it from ringing.
And sprayed it in there, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a hallway here with a lot of people coming through, and
classroom right across the hall.
Classroom across the hall, so we want to make sure that we contained as much sound as possible in here. And that door is massive because it's not the normal 36-inch wide door either to be able to load things in. And yeah, it just turned out great. I mean, you've got so many options here when it comes to having this room here, which is a little bit more of a dry sound, and probably used mostly for vocals and other things like that. It's got a window in it that allows you to be able to see into the rest of the live room, And yeah, this large space in particular, drums and strings and all the things that you want to sound big, and this room will do it. And it's got a combination of 2-inch pro panels from Orlex spaced off the wall 2 inches with the offset and paling clips, and then also their T-fuser diffusers. And you'll notice kind of how they're scattered around the room. It's actually a bit of like a checkerboard effect where they're staggered opposite each other. So there's really not much parallel untreated space in the room because of how it was done. But it also helps you to use less treatment by getting it done that way. Have the T-fuser ceiling clouds, which have diffusion on the bottom side and then absorption above it, and be able to control a lot of the floor to ceiling action that's happening in here. Do you guys have a lot of like full bands come in here for students?
Yeah, we do at times, and we've done all sorts of different options of kind of where, kind of who goes where, but it is good to have the ability to track live, but also to have people isolated when tracking live, right? So then you can go back and replace the bass, replace this or that, without having to redo everything, without having something that had leaked into the other channels or whatever.
One thing we added on our own midstream was we put in some TRS pass-through boxes.
Yeah.
And so, your guitarist can sit out here on a stool, plug into the TRS pass-through, and then plug in on the other side directly into the amp, crank that amp up in that isolation room and play out here full volume and not have to worry about blowing out your ears and getting a really good sound out of that full amp.
Yeah, but each of the areas definitely has its unique sonic characteristic where, like you said, this is really big. That is more deadened in that space, but also it depends on where in the room you go. Yeah. Like I said, it's almost like, you can kind of go in that corner and be super dead, or you could back up a little bit or face the other way. And then this room in here is just super fun where we have the amplifier collection. This 1969 Fender Princeton Reverb, and this is what is known as the Drip Edge. We got one of the more desirable things because it's the characteristics of the pre-CBS Fender amplifiers, like this little Champ over here, has the black cosmetics on it, but I guess the circuitry, right, is the same. And our mutual friend, Kevin Silva, good friend of the program, Uncle Albert's amplifier, restored that back to its full glory. And this from Ben Fargen over here, this is a 12-watt Marshall clone that has a 3-way switch on it. It's, the decades, 60s, 70s, 80s. And this thing's really cool. It's like 1 watt, 5 watt, something like that. And it's a little Marshall. And then this also from Ben Fargen is his version of the B15 flip-top Ampeg bass amp that like Duck Dunn would have played through. And then we like this Laney over here. It is close to a Vox, but it's a 5 watt instead of a 15 or 30 watt. And then a small collection of pedals, and then of course the Leslie cabinet.
Yep,
the 147 Leslie cabinet back there.
It's nice to be able to isolate that from everything else.
It's very loud.
It's super loud.
But you can crank it up a little bit to get a little bit of that overdrive, but you don't want to be in the same room with it.
Right.
But it's nice to have some place to do this, because once again, that's the difference between maybe doing something at home. You're not going to put these amps on 3 or 7 at home.
Yeah, right.
And not hurt your hearing or bother your neighbors or something. But here with this isolated control thing, you can do it.
This is a double sliding glass door, and it's a laminated glass on each side with a big air gap in between, which helps with that isolation, because a single sliding glass door, you're only as good as your weak link. And so we built these double wall systems here. We didn't want to only put a single door in there, but with that air gap, it isolates really well.
And I would point out too, you really floated everything. This is not, this is caulked here, right? Yes. So we don't have, the wood is not coming all the way. There's a cork strip down there that separates the wood. So it really, really is all floated and isolated.
In here, we have a combination of products. We've got some pro panels from Orlex with the 2-inch air gap behind it. We have some of their mini fuser diffusers, which are the 1 foot by 1 foot diffusers that are all rotated in different ways to help scatter the sound evenly throughout the room. And then in some of the corners of the space, we actually have bass traps from a company called Dual Acoustics, which unfortunately is not in existence anymore, but they made an amazing product, just a really deep traps that could handle some of the low frequency issues. Because anytime you get a smaller room like this, we did everything we could as far as the dimensions of the space ways to make it as good as possible, but you still need some help on that low end.
But before any of this treatment was here, with just these hard surfaces, you literally couldn't have a conversation, and that just kind of blew my mind as to how effective these things really are.
And another really important feature in both of the ISO rooms was the fact that we isolated audio on one wall, power on another, and then of course we have our own HVAC and fire security as well. But we made sure that those were not in a situation where power was going to be feeding into audio and vice versa.
And all the power and audio cables, when they came through, they're all heavily caulked and sealed.
Yep.
You can actually see in the large room too that kind of the cable
we built
trace
a trough.
that we did, the trough around to get over to that other side. You want to check out some of the other rooms that we have? So this is what that room used to be, right?
Basically a smaller version. So, but yeah, we had the dimmer package for the lights. We had the piping grid to hang the lights from, and then it was just open ceiling all the way up. So we took everything down to the walls. We had teched them all the way around the room.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started the room next door, was getting rid of all the video elements.
And so how many sets do you typically have?
We have 3. The psych wall is chroma key green, so we can do virtual backgrounds there. This set came to us from the local Fox affiliate, and then the LED set we bought at the same time. So it's actually got LED strips behind the white panels.
Okay.
And so we can change the color background on those white windows anytime we want to. And we just put in new LED lighting, new pedestals for our cameras. We're getting new cameras next summer. And then we also upgraded our teleprompters with talent monitors so that they can actually see program video coming back.
You want to show us the
smaller rooms? This room is a nice little stereo workroom. We're set up with 2 Slate Ravens, and then as far as the actual interface, we're using a HD Omni from Avid.
Okay.
So the nice thing is you can record your project in one of the other rooms, bring it in here and mix and edit.
Yeah. It's nice to have some auxiliary spaces that people to use, so they're not tying up the big studio setup that other people can use.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and once again, credit to Mark. He had an idea of make each of these rooms a little different, right? So in this room, for people that don't know what these are, these Slate Ravens are both the video monitor, but they're also a touch screen.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you don't have to have a tactile interface. It is the screen, and so you can just do things by the mouse, or you can use your finger, and then that sweet little universal audio, what is that, a 610?
Yeah.
So you got a nice tube pre, and then you've got the optical compressor. So, that's a nice little signal chain if you do want to do a voiceover, a vocal, or we've even had people play sometimes an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
In what we kind of described as that vocal closet.
Awesome.
So nice use of a space.
Yeah, really great. How does that work with the students? Do they have to just sign out the room to be able to have access to it, or who gets access to those rooms?
Yeah, so everything's tied to different classes that we have, and one nice, I think, evolution in the program is we have a 3-credit, 4-time repeatable pass-fail experiential application class where people can propose projects. And so, it's a fun space for them to be in, and we like them to be here. Stay all night if you want, be in here all weekend if you want. And by the time they get to that junior, senior level, they certainly can do that without having to constantly ask for help or whatever. But once again, the kind of the simplicity of the design, credit to Mark and other friends of the program, and then the treatment, I think makes it pretty easy for people to work and get good results.
Sure.
And this room is learned as part of the advanced audio production class. The beginning audio production class, we use the small studio. It's very basic. And then on the second class, MI 252, the students then move into this room, learn the more advanced board, the automation, all of the outboard gear that's in the racks, and use the big studio. So we've seen the studio use really pick up, and usually because there's so much going on, they just send me an email and say, I'd like to use the studio next weekend. And as long as the calendar's clear, then I give them the okay to do that.
That's great. And they have card reader access to be able to do that?
Yep, 24/7. So this room is set up for 5.1, which we use in teaching audio for video. We actually have a holophone H3D microphone that records 6 channels in one, what looks like a giant egg head. And so we can record in 5.1. We've actually done that with some music with the Butler Symphony and the jazz ensemble and choirs, and also the wind ensembles. And so we've recorded those concerts in 5.1 as well as stereo and been able to mix them both
Very
ways. And of course 5.1 works really well when you're working on something that's going to DVD.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot too. But again, this room is fairly simple. We have an Avalon preamp in here, as well as, again, it's an HD Omni that's running this room. This room is also where we do some MIDI scoring. So we've got, real simple audio, USB keyboard in here. So if you want to lay down some film score type tracks, you can do that in here as well. The Genlec 5.1 system is really nice. They're small, but they sound fantastic.
Yeah.
And so we've had this room set up this way for quite a while. But again, we added carpet into this room. And we're actually going to get another controller interface, probably a fader port 16, to go in here just to have something tactile. Now, Gavin, you'll remember that this room was very dead when we first moved into the building.
Right.
And so we repurposed the panels that are missing here and put in the geofusers. And then the other big change was we took up the carpeting and put in luxury vinyl tile. And so that helped liven things up. It used to be that you would walk into this room and as soon as the door shut, it was dead. I mean, you felt uncomfortable after a while.
It made it go from feeling like you were going to go have your hearing tested, which is not a great environment for recording something, right? Unless it was maybe a really dry vocal or a voiceover or something, but that was about it. So it really made it where, you want to play some music in here. Yeah,
just the change that you got from the LVT plus the Orlex geofusers, and the fact that we could reuse those panels elsewhere. Luckily, the panels that were removed were about the same size as the width of the geofusers, and they fit in really nicely.
One thing we have back here that we don't use too often, but it is really cool. Yeah, vocalbooth.com. So, you put your speaker cabinet down in here and mic it. So this is an ISO box with a lot of treatment inside here.
Yeah.
And it's actually a fancier one that actually has, if you want to turn it on, there's an air conditioning unit.
Yeah.
So if you have a tube amplifier in there, like a self-contained, like our Princeton or whatever, it would build up a lot of heat. And you really have kind of the double isolation that way, right? So like, it's pretty thick going out to the hallway anyway, but then you have that extra isolation to maybe have 2 things going on at once, or just have something really cranked and not disturb anybody or yourself.
The students that come out of the program, tell us a little bit about like what industries they typically go into.
Yeah, people have gone into everything from radio in terms of sales, production, marketing, promotion, some kind of traditional things like that. We've had students go on to work at major labels. We've had people do some entrepreneurial type things. And we've even had a few people go on and do some really high-level things. People that have worked with, top-level artists like Halsey and people like that, in different creative kind of positions.
Then we've got the control room that's over here.
So yeah, this room is very basic, but again, we stole some more panels around this room, added the diffusion on the back, as well as more geofusers in here, just to kind of liven up the back end of the room a little bit. So it's sort of live end, dead end type of a feel. The audience we've really had great luck with. We had the 8024 before. This is the smaller version, the 4816. It's a good just inline console. So you start with the mic pre at the top, you end with your dial return at the bottom, and everything's right there. And like Cutler was saying with the API, you learn one, you've learned them all. And then some outboard gear, but not nearly as much as what we have in the other rooms. But again, the LA2A is one, and also the 1176. We also have the software plugins. And so you can actually run the same signal through the device as well as the plugin and do that A/B listening to learn the difference between the two. Emulation's great, but in a lot of cases, the box is still better.
Yeah.
There's something about that tube that just warms things up and really brings it to life.
Then there's a stereo drummer compressor down there, a 4-channel, Focusrite, and then 2 outboard old Yamaha SPX 990s or whatever those
990s. Our mic closet basically is a combination of things that we've acquired over the years. The U87's serial numbers go back to 1972, and they were purchased for recording classical music over in Clues Hall. You can see where they've taken their bounces off of the balcony. Here's the holophone microphone. So it's left, center, right, left surround, right surround, and then inside is a sub mic. So it's 6 microphones coming out on one cable. And so you plug that into either your console or into a field recorder, and you're able to record 6 tracks from this one microphone. We've got some Royer ribbons. We have an RCA ribbon or two, a lot of condensers. We have a lot of Shure microphones. The KSM44 classic condenser. We have some Rodees. We've got some Sheps, AKGs, some Neumanns. But the nice thing is that depending on which class you're in, the upper level production class and the experiential class have access to all of these. Telefunken 451, we have some Apex tube mics up here.
Well, and we've got a FET 47 too, right? Like a
Yeah, we have a
Neumann
47
FET 47. Yeah.
Again, good mics, good placement, good space, good recording. So it's important for us to have a good collection.
Well, thank you guys for everything you always do for us.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for 20 years of partnering.
Right. Yeah, and more to come. So thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Guys.